If he does these things, he's serious about commitment. We're going to dive into this conversation today. I recently quoted dating is about possibility, exploring a relationship is about potential. In today's environment, most humans focus on attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection in the dating process. They're not necessarily, while they might have relationship in the back of their mind, they're in the present moment, particularly men in the present moment, in that space of attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection. But a relationship is so much more. Relationship is about teamwork. Relationship is about maybe forging a life together. So I believe it begs the question, what is the difference between dating and exploring a relationship, or at least calling yourself in a relationship? Because I think people today spend far too much time in the dating process and not necessarily in the process of exploring a relationship. And what I mean to say is they're focused on having a good time, just enjoying each other's company, but not necessarily building the deep roots of trust designed for a relationship. Now, when I talk about relationship, or at least on my channel, I'm more hyper focused on partnership based relationships. Let me repeat that: partnership based relationships. We call these serious relationships. Sometimes we call these living together. Sometimes we call this marriage. But ideally, these are partnership-based relationships. And yet, sadly, most people find themselves in casual relationships, situationships, even friends with benefits, or hooking up. And since men tend to be the driver of the bus towards commitment, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, what does it look like for a man who's serious about commitment, who isn't driven by the little head, he's driven by the big head? Now, again, men tend to drive the bus in commitment. It's once said that women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of commitment. Mainly, it's usually, traditionally speaking, men do the asking of marriage. Men are the ones who say, I will take care of you. Although I believe this environment has changed substantially over the last 10, 20, or 30 years, especially with not just women's empowerment per se, but the empowerment of a woman can direct her own life, because basically life is dependent upon resources. And now women actually outnumber men in the workforce. While there might be a disparity on income levels, women are absolutely capable of taking care of themselves. So they're no longer dependent upon men from a financial perspective. And that's a good thing. And by the way, for any of the men watching, that's a good thing for you too. The reality is, here in the United States, it almost takes two incomes to make a relationship work. So women are in a position of empowerment. They are in a position to choose. But throughout history, women have chosen whom they'll have sex with, but men choose who they want to commit to. It's one of the reasons why the most popular search question is, why are men so non-committal? Why are men commitment phobic? It's because women are wondering, why aren't men committing? Well, I think they have to do these 5 things I'm going to share with you in a moment before they're either ready, capable, have a vision for commitment. Ready, capable, and vision. You see, a man has to, okay, now let me just stop here for a second. My audience is what I call midlife, and midlife is after baby making years and before retirement. So if you're in that bracket, most of the people watching my channel are between the age of 42 and 69. I call that midlife. Maybe because my father lived to be 99 years old. So if we take the first 30 or 40 years of our life as stage 1, that bulk in the middle is stage 2, and then the tail end, 70 to 100, is stage 3. This is midlife, okay? Midlife is uniquely different, predominantly because in midlife, we have a substantial percentage of people who are divorced. Roughly 75% of singles are divorced, and divorce comes with it an emotional experience that can cause someone to be wounded, hurt, and struggle to be in relationship. I want you to think of a marriage as a tapestry, and when you end a marriage, it's at the unraveling of the tapestry you had life with another person. And many people are wounded or affected by their past relationships. They have deep hurt, they have deep pains. And until your desire, your capacity, and your vision for a relationship exceeds the fear, the past hurts, and the fantasy many people have, until that desire of real readiness exceeds the fear and pain, then it's going to be a struggle for someone to fully commit. I want you to really lean into that, because I think many people are just operating on that entertainment, attraction, romance, physical connection driving the bus. The lower chakras, as they say in the spiritual community, versus the heart chakra that's operating from a place of genuine love, genuine commitment. But you have to reach that place of wanting it, having that vision for it. So what does a man look like who's done the work? Well, we're going to dive into this right now. So what are the 5 things he must do to be serious about commitment? Well, I'm here to say he's done the inner work and he keeps doing the inner work. Someone write that down. He's done the inner work and he keeps doing the inner work. A man who's serious about commitment has faced his shadows. He's just not looking for a partner to soothe his wounds. He's actively healing them. He owns his part in past relationship patterns and seeks partnership from a place of wholeness, not rescue. By the way, you know how you can spot these men? By the way, ladies, have you ever sat at a date? You're sitting across from someone. They used to ask the question, what happened in your marriage? And he goes on, throwing his ex-spouse under the bus. Ladies, you do this too. I've sat across the table from women. I've sat across the table of women. I can literally see every man that's ever hurt her standing behind her. But if a man shows up literally throwing his ex-relationships under the bus without taking any ownership on his part of why that relationship might not have worked, then chances are you might be rolling the dice with this man. You might be rolling the dice to his capacity to actually lean into a serious relationship if we're carrying significant past hurts. I know many of you ladies are struggling with this. You found yourself in a relationship with someone who is incredibly myopic, overly selfish, maybe even narcissistic. And in many cases, experiencing those types of men over the years and years can cause deep pain that can make you doubt yourself. Gaslighting experiences, just to name a few, starting to question your own reality. So when you found yourself with those types of men, have you done the inner work? Have you worked on yourself? Have you reached a place of forgiveness? And just like these men who have done the inner work and that keep doing the work, they have forgiven their previous partners, but most importantly, they've forgiven themselves for finding themselves in situations. And ladies, I know many of you have experienced that narcissistic man. We men have experienced those types of women. I've spoken to a significant percentage of men who found themselves in relationships with someone who might be bipolar, might be borderline, might be an alcoholic. This isn't singular to ladies experiencing this within men. Both men and women experience this, and this is why I'm such a big proponent of doing the inner work. And the inner work starts with self-love. I wrote a book about this. What the heck is self-love anyway? A journey of personal development, self-help, spiritual work. And whether it's personal development, self-help, spiritual work, or therapy, I'm a big proponent of every individual doing some level of work on themselves to heal, to work on their shadows, I believe self-awareness is the recognition of one's fears, their insecurities, their negative patterns, their limiting beliefs, their judgments towards others, and how their actions can affect another human being. And ladies, this is so critically important to understand this piece of how our actions can affect another human being. And for someone who's done the work, they're very mindful. They're not chasing sex. They're coming at it from an objective point of view. They're ready for a relationship. They're not operating from the little head. They're operating from their heart and their big head. That's number one. He's done the work. Number two, he leads with clarity, not chemistry. He leads with clarity, not chemistry. Can someone write that down? He's not chasing the high. He's seeking alignment. He's seeking resonance. He values emotional safety over instant sparks. And more is tuned into the deeper conversations and mutual values than just the surface level attraction, as I talked about before. Many of you have seen the chart I have. It's called the 3 active people dating. This is not a fact, it's merely an opinion. I roughly say 20% of the population are users. They seek short-term game, the love bombers, the players, the gold diggers, the entitled people, the selfish people, and those only care about themselves. And while I say 20% are grower builders, they seek long-term commitment, emotionally grown up, good relationship skills, have their act together. Most everyone you're going to find are these spenders. And the reason why they're called spenders is they'll spend time with you as a placeholder. They seek companionship, connection, and sex. Usually their life has some chaos associated, usually have a dysfunctional life, and they have fear. They have fear around commitment. Why I'm sharing this with you is when a man is ready for commitment, when he's serious about relationship, he leads with clarity, not just the chemistry. And number 3, he talks about the future and he means it. He's not just chasing the high. Oh my God, this is so amazing. This is so wonderful. He's overly romantic, over the top, love bombing and such like that. He's talking about the future, but the difference is when the guy is coming on strong, especially in the early stages when sex is involved, oftentimes he's doing that to convince you to be with him, but does he really mean it? You don't have to decode him. He speaks with intentionality. His words and actions align. He includes you in his vision and is open to co-creating a life with you together, not just seeing where this goes. He asks, how did we get here? Where are we? And where do we want to go? Where do we want to go? You know, I think men who actively talk about the relationship after the physical intimacy are the ones who are serious about commitment. Men who don't want to talk about the future, ask yourself, if someone doesn't want to talk about the future, how serious are they about commitment? Think about that for a second. How serious someone about commitment if they're not talking about it? In fact, I want to encourage, excuse me for a second. I want everyone to think about this for a second. Shouldn't we always be talking about the relationship? But Jonathan, I'm just supposed to sit in my feminine energy and let men lead. I'm not supposed to talk about anything. Folks, you know why I mock that? Because you are in charge of your relationship destiny, ladies. I wouldn't give that job to a man. And for the men watching here, I'm here to encourage you to create a container of safety. When a woman gives her physical body, but also her heart to a man, that's a very precious thing. And so if you're going to talk about the future, you men out there, then mean it. And ladies, if you're having to decode his actions, his words, you're always on edge and you two are not talking about the relationship, folks, this is what we should be doing. As soon as that penis gets very close to vagina, you should be talking about what does it look like to integrate into each other's lives? What does it look like? What the future would look like? These are the conversations, but oh no, let's just have entertainment and romance because that's supposed to drive the bus. I've heard women say, gosh, if a man doesn't pay for my valet, I wouldn't go out with him ever again. If he doesn't take me out to a fancy dinner, he only wants to take me out to coffee, I wouldn't ever see that man again. Is that all you want? Is just to be entertained, or do you want something at a heart-centered level? Men who talk about the future and mean it certainly are men who are serious about commitment. Number 4, he can hold the discomfort without running. Bump, 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 running. Real commitment isn't about just staying when it's easy. A serious man doesn't ghost, doesn't stonewall, doesn't spiral when things get hard. He leans in with presence, accountability, and the willingness to repair. Folks, every relationship is going to have conflict. If you haven't read the book, 8 Dates by Doctors John and Julie Gottman, I highly recommend it. I'm going to open the book to chapter, I believe it's chapter 3. Could be mistaken. Hold on a second. No, it's chapter 2, right there. Agree to disagree, addressing conflict. Every relationship's going to have conflict. How you actually repair that conflict between the two of you is going to determine the success of your relationship. You know, it's interesting. I heard a dating coach tell people to ask the question on a first date, how do you handle conflict? And I thought to myself, if someone asked me that question, first off, I'd probably be a deer in the headlights. I don't know how I handle conflict. I mean, I guess it depends on the circumstance. I know certainly when I was married, I didn't handle it very well. When my first significant relationship, I buried my head in the sand. And my last relationship, we kind of talked things through, but I was still poor at it. I'll be candid with you. Now, when I say I was poor at it, it wasn't, I think that was a result of not being with someone who was also relatively poor at it, because we were afraid to talk about the more important aspects of the relationship. But ultimately, when two people have built a foundation of trust and a foundation of care based on how did we get here? Where are we today? Where do we want to go in this relationship? When that's the ongoing conversation as you're building trust. And I'm saying this should be a regular conversation. But Jonathan, I'm told that I shouldn't ask any questions. Jonathan, I'm just told to be, just let the man lead the bus. Ladies, men are actually not good at this. Men are not good at this. I know you're supposed to just lead, supposed to let men lead, but men are winging it out there. I'm being blunt here. I know it's nice to believe men have, and by the way, the men out there that are stoic and strong, they know what they're doing. Let's look at the wake of how many women you've had in your life, because that's going to dictate to those stoic men who claim to have it all together. How many bodies are buried in your life? Okay, and if you have very few and you're very intentional and you're a serial monogamist, okay, I get that. But if you've gone from one to the next, that doesn't make you any better at relationship. And certainly for those who can't handle the tough stuff and they run at first sight of conflict, because that's going to determine the success of your relationship. And lastly, number 5, he knows love is a practice, not performance. For him, love isn't just a checklist, it's devotion. He understands that the commitment isn't just a decision, it's a spiritual path. One calls for patience, truth, humility, and heart. He's coming at it from a heart-centered space and not just a place of, where's this relate, from the place, I was about to say something wrong, from a place of like, I just want that companionship, connection, and sex, without any real solid presence and intention around commitment. Folks, I'm going to repeat this. I've said it several times today, but I'm going to repeat it again. If you're not actively talking about the health of the relationship very early on, and as I said before, when that penis gets to go inside the vagina, ladies, you have every right to talk about, how did we get here? And what I mean by how did we get here is to look at your past experience and say, how did we get to this place? Where are we today in this relationship? Where are we? Really examine it. And where do we want to go? And it should be a mutual conversation. That's why when you hear about communication is the importance in a relationship, it's about not having the fear to talk about the container of a relationship. And it takes a good 3 to 6 months to actively talk about the container of the relationship to build the deep roots of trust so you can navigate those challenges and hopefully determine, are you on the same page together to go the distance? Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know if it is. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, Hey, there's links below. Schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's links to get all the books I recommend and to get my dating vows. And a man who's serious about commitment is willing to read my dating vows with you because it is the agreements that you make early on that determine the health and success of your relationship. All right, those who know my live format know it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, there's a little chat box in the corner. Write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. A picture of him right there. He's my son who passed away over 7 years ago. And his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process Insight Institute and scholarships to coaching as well. And our goal is $50 tonight. So I'd appreciate some love. Phil goes, hurrah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. All right, looks like we have a bashful group tonight. We don't have a lot of comments coming in. I'm going to give it a few seconds. By the way, if you want to join the love seat, also, we'll post a link right here. But if we don't have very many people joining us today, it's going to be a short-lived video for today. All right, going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right, thanks so much for joining me tonight. I truly appreciate you. Wishing you all super duper wonderful evening. Be well. Thanks. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.